Hey guys, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. Our guest today has a very powerful story that she's going to share with us. Um, it's heavy. There's some heavy material in here, but Liz does such a good job of handling it in a very raw, very straightforward way, but injecting humor and a very positive attitude despite some really difficult things happening to her in her life. So, without further ado, I don't need to set the table any more than I did. We're going to welcome Liz Gagnon onto Salty Ginger Talk now. So, Liz, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm here to bring some little sweetness to the salty ginger show.
So, Liz and I had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago, and she was asking about the name. And for those that don't know, the salty is because I cuss like a sailor left to my own devices, and the ginger is because before life got a hold of me and I went gray, I was a ginger, a redhead. And so, Liz does a lot of things around tea time and how tea time can be kind of therapeutic and make everybody feel better. And so she offers up tea to lots of people. And we'll talk about that on the podcast. But she said, I can come on and bring some sweetness to your saltiness because sweet and salty is a big thing these days. And I think she's 100% right. So,
Right? We
so
got to slide sometimes.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Liz, just from our conversation and from your bio. You do some speaking. You're a mental health advocate. You have Miss Liz's tea parties and tea times, and you had your own podcast for 5 years. So we have a ton of stuff that we can talk about here.
Absolutely. Well, a little bit that you haven't shared. I started my tea at the age of 4, and it wasn't the beverage. Everybody thinks of the beverage when they hear tea, right? But that's just a metaphor, right? To get you connected, to get that hook. It's like putting the hook in the water, right? And catch the fish. So when I say tea, people think the beverage, and I'm just like, I'm going to play with your mind. I'm going to dig a little deep, and I'm going to spill it really real and raw. So, I started speaking and sharing my story in 2017 when I wrote in the first anthology book. And from there, the rest is history. And I'm still working on books and a bunch of other stuff that we can share tonight with everyone who's listening.
That's excellent. So, what led you to write the first book? So, one of the things we do on the podcast is we talk about people's lives. We want to hear good things that happened and what you learned from those, and tough things that happened and what you learned from those. So maybe we start with a couple of good things. You tell us about those, what you learned from them, and then we'll dig into the shittier stuff and do the fun stuff second.
Well, the good stuff. I shared my story in order to heal, right? Because I've been through a lot of stuff, and we'll get into that during the show. But writing has healed me, and it has gotten me to open up doors and opportunities and meet people that I've never would have met had I not shared my story and turned the pain into a purpose, right? The negative was it was very abusive. It was very sick. There was a lot of addictions, a lot of neglect and stuff that I had to overcome, and I'm still overcoming because healing's a lifetime journey, right? So, but I started writing in 2017 when I started following Brenda Hammond, who had a book called Hear Me. And as a little girl, I wanted to be heard because I'm a survivor of child abuse. So I reached out to Brenda and started following her. And then she put a call out for grandparents for an anthology she wanted to put together, but grandparents weren't jumping on board. And then she's like, how can I do this? So then she's like, how about different stories? So then I said, well, how about my story? And she's like, sure, absolutely. And then 63 authors and 4 books later with Sacred Hearts Rising series, got to meet people from Canada, United States, and a little girl from Pakistan as well shared her story. So it's been a journey, right? And when we think of books and writing, we don't think of healing journeys, right? We think of, oh, it's a story. Let's just read a story, right? It's just a book. But you really do get an insight on a person's life and on your own life when you're reading these anthologies and books as well. So, and then with my tea books, well, I wanted to do something different. And that's my whole metaphor in life is do different, get different results. So I wrote those in 2023. Yeah, 2 years ago. And I'm working on a children's book now, a poetry book, and some tea in another way. We're just changing some letters up. I like to play with people. and see if they're paying attention, right? So we're still serving tea. We're just taking the A off and we're putting an E. And that was supposed to be coming on my birthday in May, but we had some hiccups and we're working on those hiccups. And hopefully in June we'll get it out. And if not, well, then we'll work on those hiccups until we get those hiccups all fixed, right? So
That is the right attitude. We're going to keep trying until we get it right. Might not get it right the first time, but we can try again and get to where we need to be. So, what is it do you think about writing that is so therapeutic? We, for what it's worth, we in multiple episodes have talked about, not just with guests, but in episodes where we say, "Hey, here's something you can do to cure whatever. If you're anxious, if you're procrastinating, if you're et cetera, et cetera." And one of the things we talk about is actual writing. And what we subscribe to is we're not talking about typing, we're talking about writing with your hand and a pen and a piece of paper. And there's something very therapeutic about it because it forces your brain to think about your thoughts in a way that allows you to write them down, which is very different. You can kind of go mindless on a keyboard. But what do you think it drives that when you're writing?
well, I always like to do a rough draft, right? When I'm writing in any book, because like you said, we could jump on the keyboard and just put it out. But there's a totally different when you're handwriting it. And then when you read your own words, right? Because it comes from you. It doesn't come from anybody else. It's from all inside of you. And sometimes you just kind of spill it, right? You kind of just keep writing and writing and writing. Then when you read it over, you're just like, where the hell did this come from? I thought I fixed that like 10 years ago. Why is that coming out now? So the therapeutical aspect of writing is you just never know what's going to come out, right? You just put the pen to the paper and you go with what comes out and you let it out and you get re-traumatized sometimes, you get triggered sometimes, but for me it was always these are my feelings, these are my emotions, this is what I could not express to anybody. So for me it was the expression of the ink to the paper.
Sure, that makes sense. Um, so your very first book, was it about your experiences? Is that the first book you wrote?
Yeah, I wrote in Sacred Hearts Rising, which is an anthology collection, so there's multiple authors. So we wrote a 3 to 4 page chapter. I think we were allowed 1,800 words. My first book that I wrote with Sacred Hearts was about my child abuse. I was abused at the age of 4, and then became impregnated by my uncle and had a stillborn child. And that's why I shared that story in book 1. In book 2 was the double grief of my children, the loss of my stillborn daughter, and then my children going into the foster care system because of domestic violence. And then book 3 was mental health, and book 4 was my domestic violence story. So it gave me a chance to share a little bit with everybody bit by bit, so it wasn't so heavy, right?
Yep. I was just going to say, one of the things, just so you know, Liz, one of the things we do on the podcast is we call out themes that we hear from our guests over and over again. And we have such a diverse variety of guests, but we hear common themes all the time. And so you just heard Liz talk about some very heavy subjects. And yet, if she hadn't brought those subjects up, you'd not know that she had gone through those things in her life because she has a very positive outlook on life, despite having dealt with some very difficult and very heavy things. And so we talk about mindset a lot. And I like to call that out because you're looking at someone who's had a lot of success in their life, and it has not been from traveling the primrose path. There has been a lot of bumps and bruises and breakdowns along the way, but she still maintains a positive attitude on life, and that's a choice. And it's very important for all of us to remember that. So just wanted to call that out. I don't want to slow your roll, Liz, because I want to get back to you, but we try to call those themes out when we see them. So you talked about some really difficult and challenging things that had to take a lot of guts to go public with that. How did you do
It
that?
did.
How did you overcome the fear of exposing those things to other people? What was that like?
It was scary because when I first wrote in the first book, Joe, I didn't think that it would become best-selling international bookseller right on Amazon. When I got the news that it went bestseller, I was just like, oh my God, somebody in Rome right now on the toilet is reading my story and they're like, what the hell? This girl, my God, where did she get the strength from, right?
Mm.
And I like to throw humor into life because life gets heavy, right? So I like to throw in some dark humor when it gets too heavy. And, life was heavy for me, and I had to find a way to overcome it. So I would go down these rabbit holes. Alice in Wonderland was one of my favorite films. For the longest time, I thought they were writing made the movie about myself. I'd be like, Grandma, why are they calling me Alice? My name is Elizabeth. And they're like, that's not about you, sweetheart. And I was like, Grandma, that's where I go. I go into rabbit holes. Like, and they're like, no, sweetheart, it's not about you. So then I realized, okay, there was other people that went through rabbit holes and
Mm.
they had to survive too, right? So that's what I like to do with my tea time and my podcast, right? And any work I do, I like to take people down rabbit holes. And when I say tea, that's a rabbit hole, right? Because people are like, oh, but I don't even like a beverage. And I'm just like, you don't have to like a beverage, right? Let me just give you a hook. Let me just grab you and see where it takes you, right? So, um, but like you said, Joe, I shared a lot of heavy stuff, and a lot of people, when they look at me, they say, "Wow, this woman has everything together." Uh, you don't want to see my inside of my head. I'm telling you, it's a real wonderland in there. I think Alice is still playing in there in the back with the white rabbit sometimes, but but we have a choice to make, right? Do we stay in the heavy stuff or do we just move through it? And writing saved me, like it saved my life. So.
Wow. When you were a young lady and you were experiencing these difficult things, did you have anyone that you could turn to, that you could talk to, that would counsel you, or were you kind of by yourself when that was going on?
I was kind of by myself. My family had a lot of sickness, a lot of addictions, and what happened in the house stayed in the house. Don't bring shame to the family, especially when I got pregnant by my uncle. That was a big shame, right? But it also stopped the abuse. It gave me a lot of mixed feelings too, Joe, because uh, I was 14. I knew what a baby was, but I was not allowed to talk about her because it never, uh, it was stillborn, right? So it was
Mm.
a lot of people in my family thought it was Mormon to talk about this daughter. They did allow me to name her, and then they gave me options on where I could put her. And my father was angry at me, so my dad just kind of said, "Well, if you want to see her, go to Science North and Sudbury and go look at the test tubes. She's in there floating around." That's so I only wrote my first book when my dad died because I only felt safe when my dad was gone. Because if I spoke of my daughter over the years when I was younger, they would put me in a psychiatric ward. Oh my God, here she goes. She's crazy again. She's talking about this thing that doesn't exist, this dead baby, this fetus, and they were really mentally abusive. Um, so and I was a kid that was always like, why? Why? I was always asking questions, eh? Why can't I talk about her? Like I did have a baby. I was old enough to know what a baby was at 14. Like, play with baby dolls, so you know all these things. So for 31 years, I celebrated her in silence until my dad died. And then I was like, Mom's going to give you a voice, and I'm going to write it in a book.
Wow, that's so powerful. So, um, yeah, I'm trying to just figure out where to go next. You've had this terrible thing happen to you as a young teenage girl. How did you eventually grow up and leave your parents' house? What was that like for you?
Well, I started my journey at the age of 13, the year before I lost Ashley. I had a part-time job. I went to school as well. I had a little rent that one of my aunts had co-signed to be like a legal guardian that could watch over me. But my dad was an alcoholic and I was a daddy's girl. I don't know why I was a daddy's girl, but I was. And my dad drank a lot and nobody was with him, so I had to make sure he was okay. I was the one that was always watching for everybody else. They were okay.
Mm.
So I moved back home with my dad for a couple of years. And then I became pregnant at 17 with a guy that I ended up marrying. I never liked the guy. I don't even know why. Um, like, it was just, there was so much trauma in my life that I just wanted to get away from it. And then when I became pregnant with my second daughter, I didn't want to lose another baby. So my dad, when I told him that I was pregnant, he said, "Well, you know what you need to do. You need to get married." And I was like I'm a kid. Like I can't do this. Like I can't get married. Like I got to go to school. I got things to do. I got friends." And he's like, "Well, if you want to play, you're gonna take care of it." So he said, "You either get married or when the baby's born, we put it up for adoption." And I was like, "There's no way I'm losing another kid." So I got married. And then there was an inside joke with my father and my ex-husband. Well, you can have her for $2. So I thought like it was a joke, like, but when we got married in a town hall because it was $2 cheaper than the church. So that's where that $2 came in. And my dad looked at my ex-husband and he said, "Okay, well, where's my $2? Only when I get the $2 will you get her." So it wasn't like a joke. It was like, here you go. Years later, after my ex-husband, got together with this other guy, and this guy wanted to marry me, and he went to my dad, and my dad said, "Well, you can have her for $4." And I said, "Well, I guess I'm going up in price." Uh, you know, have a couple husbands, and I might get to $100, like, but it was just that was how sick my father was. He really didn't like me, and there's a part of my story that maybe one day I will share. I'm waiting for other people to pass before that story comes out, just because
Mm,
I don't want to deal with the nonsense and all of the lies and bullshit and all that again. So
sure. Totally understand. We're not, yeah, we're not trying to pry somewhere that you're not ready to talk about yet either. You're being so forthright and candid about heavy stuff already. And we appreciate you doing that because I think there's a lot of value for our listeners to hear other people that have gone through really difficult things and they've put together a good life for themselves, you know? Um, so you've two daughters, and I apologize. Ashley was stillborn, and then did you have another daughter or two more daughters?
I had two more daughters and a son. So the next one from my ex-husband was Natalie, and then my son was Nico. And then from a one night stand, I have a beautiful daughter, Lisa Marie. And I don't regret any of it.
Mm.
With my youngest daughter, it was my ex-husband was cheating so much. I was just like fed up. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go and do this. But I didn't think my ex-husband was fixed, so I didn't think of getting pregnant or anything like that. You just go out and you're just so angry, right? So you go out and you do this thing and you're just like, oh no, what did I just do? And I was a woman that didn't want to lose my babies, so
Yeah.
I kept her. And her father, and he found me 5 years later, asked me if I really had a kid, and I said, "Yeah, you want to meet her?" And we've kind of been best friends for the last 25 years. And one night stand turned into a best friend. Do I really know the guy? No, I don't really know him. But we have stayed in contact for her, so.
Wow, that's pretty amazing that you wound up being friends with the father of your child that
Right.
under those circumstances. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got you're where you're at in life. There's not been a lot of good things that have happened in your life. What mental tools? I know you've talked about going into rabbit holes and kind of retreating into a different place. Um, what did you use to kind of change that narrative in your head? Do you still go to rabbit holes? Is that still a technique that you use? Or how have you been able to compartmentalize what has happened to you and have a positive outlook on life? I'm looking for stuff to share with the listeners here that they can use in their life because you've clearly done a good job of it under very difficult circumstances. And I'm hoping you can talk about the good things and the techniques that you've used to kind of put that together.
I still go down to rabbit holes from time to time, right? Because that was my safety net. That was where I felt comfort, where I felt strength. and this will get me through, right? Let's just have some tea and rabbit holes and, Mad Hatter and all that. That's why I really thought that Alice in Wonderland was about me, because I was just like, I know these people. Like, I know this crazy cat, like Jasper who disappears. And I like the storyline was just so, I don't know if I seen it and that was why I went to it, or and I like the first version of Alice in Wonderland. I like the black and white version. Where they slowly come into the color back then. I think it was 1979 or something like that, the very, very first one. Um, that's the best one. But I do go down rabbit holes still, Joe, and but I do a lot of writing, and I do a lot of um meditating, a lot of inward healing. I'll talk to myself a lot. I'll crack up some jokes once in a while with myself, kind of sit in a room, and I'm just like, if anybody was in here, they think like this woman is like mentally, disturbed. But I just really put it in my head at a young age, right from the get-go, is that I would not be what anybody else was giving me. I chose not to, and it's a choice, right? My healing journey is a bumpy roller coaster. Like, you better buckle up. If you want to have some fun with Miss Liz, buckle up, because yeah, I'm not giving you smooth tea, guys. I'm giving you like a rough tea. Like, we're going up, we're coming down, we're going in the middle, and we're jig, 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 like sideways. It's a wooden roller coaster sometimes, and it's a metal one where we go sky high, and I'm terrified of heights, right? Um, you know, but then I have these visions, and I have, okay, I'm going to jump from a hot air balloon or something, like crazy things, right? Adventurous things. And I'm just like, would you ever do that? Absolutely not. But, you know, but it gets you through the hard times, that humor, that place of nobody's going to understand this but you. And it's really just an inner journey. And that's what it is with me with tea, is just an inner journey. Um, I choose to make it messy in there, because when it gets too comfortable and stuff like that, I get bored. Um, and I moved around a lot because of the abuse and because of family stuff. So I don't like to stay in one place too long. And even now, I've been in this place 10 years, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta move. I gotta move. Like, I gotta get out of here. Like, I gotta do something. So I don't know. Maybe I'll take a trip. I don't know. But I just feel like I have to keep moving. I have to keep going. No matter how hard it is, how many tears are coming down, you just move, girl. You just keep going. Um, and for like the listeners out there that have gone through hard times, we kind of find what works for us. Um, you know, I don't like when someone comes to me and says, Miss Liz, stop playing small. That's gonna piss me right off. You think I'm playing small? Walk a mile in my shoes before you tell me I'm playing small, because I haven't played small since the age of 4. So little things like that. And I really believe that all of us have an inner journey that we all can find ways to survive stuff. There's a lot of traumatic stuff out there, besides abuse and neglect, and that there's car accidents, there's, war, there's like, how do we get through stuff? When you listen to stories, right? How do you get through it? And people are like, how did you do it? Like, how did you move forward? Well, you just did, right? You just moved on.
Well, so there's another theme that we talk about all the time, that people that find success take action. And if you stay in one spot and you allow whatever it is that's holding you down to keep you there, you're never going to get past it. I love a lot of the aspects of Stoicism. And Marcus Aurelius was one of the original Stoics. He was the emperor of Rome. And he wrote journals that were just for himself. They somehow were found and published. However, one of the things he says in there is the obstacle is the way. And what he's trying to say is the only way to get through the obstacle is through the obstacle. So, like, if you allow it to stop you from moving forward, you're going to be stuck there forever. And hearing you talk about keep moving, pushing forward, don't quit, don't give up, like, it's a perfect tie-in to the same themes we hear over and over again from successful people. We had a gentleman on the other night who lost his business because he had two heart attacks and couldn't work for a year and went bankrupt and had to rebuild his life. We've got a woman coming on in a couple of weeks who's she was kind of sucked into a cult, and her son was murdered by the cult leader. And she has all sorts of interesting things that she does now around sunlight and water and earth. And those are things I would never, never on my own, left to my own devices, explore or understand. But we love being exposed to all of the things that are out there. Like you relating it to tea and tea parties. Like that very well could resonate with lots of other people. And I would never, ever think of that. So that's why there's so much value on our podcast. Is we have such a wide range of people who are so willing to be candid about the things that happened to them and how they fought their way through those things to get to a better spot. So, at what point did you connect that writing was? It sounds to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like writing is kind of the main point or the main thing that you can use to kind of find pleasure, find joy, be creative, and move yourself forward. When did that click for you?
Well, that started at a really young age, right? Even before I
Mm,
started writing in books, I wrote poetry, and I wrote in journals, right? Because nobody wanted to hear me, nobody wanted to believe me. So I had paper and paper and pen were my best friend. So I started writing at a really young age. I couldn't even say how young I was, maybe 4 or 5. I don't remember. I blanked out a lot of stuff because there was so much abuse, so much of it all the time that it was just like, I can't do this all the time. Like, I need a break. Like, it's like exercising 24/7. Like my body was just burning out. Like it was just like the mental abuse, the psychological abuse, the physical abuse. It was just like, do I ever get a break? Like, does it ever stop? Uh, and the only thing that saved me was that paper and pen. And it just kept telling me, release, release, release. And now those were 3 words that my Oma gave me at 4 too, Joe, was reflect, recharge, and release. And she wasn't talking about, that beverage. She was talking about life. She knew that I would have to recharge myself. I would have to release all of the people that don't give a damn. That if I said I forgive you, the next week they would do the same shit again. So, and forgiveness starts with you, and it is about you. It's not about anybody else but you. So, um, and my biggest thing is belief in yourself, believe in your words, believe in what you tell yourself. Because there's days where I tell myself I'm a rotten person, and I'm just like, well, you know what? Today's a rotten tomato. I guess we're just going to be rotten about it. But then the next day, it's going to be a good tomato, and we're going to have a good tomato sandwich. But you know what? Sometimes in the field, there's rotten, veggies. So you just don't let it sit with you, Um, and when it sits too long, get help, reach out for help. And,
yeah,
and and I do that. I reach out for help.
that's great. That's great. I love what you said about forgiveness starting with you. Um, I, so let me just ask instead of making an assumption, but did you feel any guilt or responsibility that the things that were happening to you were somehow your fault or you contributed to them?
All the time growing up. It took me many, many years, Joe, for me to realize this was not me. This was not my fault. I didn't go and put my hand up and say, "Hey, you can abuse me. Hey, you can beat me. Hey, you can rape me. Hey, you can put me in a psychiatric ward, but it took many years because so much psychological abuse, right? That you're like, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. If I just behave myself, if I'm just a good wife, if I'm just, right? But I think it was like 32, 33, and I realized I woke up one day and I was just like, this is not my fault. This is not me. I did not ask for any of this. But I'm grateful for it, Joe, because it made me who I am today. It gave me the voice, the story to share, to help others who are going through it, who are scared to speak. Um, I was a mouse before. Like even my school teachers who see me now and talk to me, they're like, "Who are you?" Like you were the quiet kid. You were in the one humming and rocking in the corner. And now you got this voice and you're like all over. You're international, you're popping and you're speaking. And you never did that in school. Like, who are you? And I was just like, I just woke up one day and said enough was enough, and let's just change it. Let's just be that change.
Wow. And just look for our listeners out there, if you're going through something, whether it's the same things that Liz is talking about, whether it's domestic abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, it's not you. It's not you. There's bad people in the world that do bad things, and it's got nothing to do with you. You just happen to be a victim of it. So you've
Yeah.
got to learn to compartmentalize that or make that make sense in your head that it's not your fault. It's one of my favorite scenes in Good Will Hunting. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
Oh, that's an awesome movie.
yeah, I love the scene where Robin Williams just keeps repeating that to Matt Damon's character. So it's just super powerful because, it's just someone validating, hey, all this bad stuff that happened to you, it's not you, man. It's not
Yeah.
you. So super powerful. So it had to be like either difficult, confusing. I don't know what the right phrase is, but when you told people about what was happening to you, they didn't believe you?
No. I literally came out and told my mom at 10 years old that I was raped, and my mom told me to smarten up, stop talking stupid, and go play with my brothers and sisters. Um,
Good
and
Lord.
then, yeah, but my mom was also one of my abusers, so abusers stick together. For anyone who's listening, if you go and you talk and reach out to people and they kind of dismiss you, maybe see if they're part of the problem as well. If they're the ones also abusing you with their silence, with their blind eyes, with their excuses. For many years, my mom pretended like, oh my God, my daughter went through all of this. And I'm so sorry. My mom was lying next to me when my uncle was on top of me and never threw him off. The next morning, she told me to go wash myself because I smelled like garbage. Like, these are things, and she even to this day, I wish my mom the best, but just stay far away from me because you're no good for my mental health.
Mm. Did you uh so the pregnancy at 14 is what kind of put a stop to it. It wasn't someone intervening or someone helping you. It was the pregnancy at 14.
Yeah. Well, with pregnancy, there's DNA, right? So there's proof right there. Uh, but that was his second time, okay, because he was arrested when I was 12. He did 6 months in jail, and when he came out, he reoffended. My parents were like, "Well, we're gonna go to auntie and uncle's," and I was just like, "I don't want to go there. Like, he's gonna do it again. He's gonna hurt me." And I knew that the first time nobody listened to me. So when the second time it happened, I was just like, I'm not telling anybody because nobody cares anyway. So we're just gonna let this go on for I don't know how God long it's gonna last. And Ashley decided that that was the end of it. Like, she was the one that put the end to it. And she's like, Mommy, you're gonna get pregnant, and I'm gonna save you. But it was a lot of mental abuse, Joe, because I lost a child.
Mm,
So it was like it stopped the abuse, but I also had another trauma on top of that trauma. Um, so I look at Ashley as a blessing and a curse because I lost a kid that I could have had. Was I ready to have a child at 14? God, no. I'm still a child, right? But I know that if she was meant to be here, she would have been here. But she knew that she had to pass in order to keep me strong because that little girl is what gives me the strength on my harder days. I can feel her presence of her saying, Mommy, hold on, you got this. There's days where I don't want to be here because I'm just so tired of it. I'm tired of the nightmares. I'm tired of the fear. I'm tired of family denying it and still to this day denying it, even though she was there, you know? Um, and I really don't like my family calling me crazy because they're the ones who made me crazy. Like, and many years later, Joe, I was diagnosed with conversion disorder. And for the listeners out there who don't know what conversion disorder is, if you Google it, it's going to say you're crazy in the head. So then I felt for many years, okay, my family's right. I'm the crazy one. I don't know why. why I survived, why I'm even here. I got to be the crazy one. I got to lose my shit all the time. I got to, you know, I need to be locked up. So that was, like you said earlier, right? Did you blame yourself? Absolutely. And when I was diagnosed with conversion disorder, the doctor even told me, like, you're crazy in the head. There's no medical reason why your body shuts down or why you can't walk or why you can't talk or like, but it was severe trauma over and over and over again. So and that's what I speak about, right? With mental health is the awareness of conversion disorder, because a lot of people think that it's only war survivors, people that went to war. Well, I went to war. I went to war for 30 years with my family. You know, they slowly killed the little girl inside of me, but the little girl kept saying, you know what? I'm getting up. It's just like when you go to war and you're on that battlefield and you got to get back up, even though you're shot in the leg or shot in the arm, you got to get back up. You got to keep going. And my body just says, you know what? From time to time, we need rest. We're done. Lay down. Recharge yourself, girl. And I don't have any control over it because the body just stops. And I'm just like, okay, we're having one of those days. Well, today's the day.
Wow. That is, I don't even know how to phrase it, but it's so impressive that you're willing to confront it. And the thing I'll call out for the listeners is still to this day, Liz is confronting it like she just talked about. So unfortunately, this isn't something where you just cross the goal line, spike the football, and score the touchdown, and you get closure to it. Like you've got to keep working at it over and over and over again because it's going to rear its head every once in a while. And so Liz has developed coping mechanisms to do that. Talk about, if you would, some of your tea parties or tea events that you have with people to kind of show them how you've used that and you're trying to give them that same tool to help themselves when things get dark for them.
Well, tea time and tea parties is actually not what everybody expects. It was a tea party in my house. There was a bunch of women that came, and there was one lady that really just liked to set up because I had the food matching with the teas and the pairing and everything, and the colors and the flowers and just a whole setup. It was just to celebrate strength, right? And that time it was lemon and strawberries, so we did yellow and pink. Not any of my favorite colors. My favorite colors are blue and orange, but I just wanted to say thank you to women in my life who gave me that little push that said, you know what, you're an incredible woman. You're a lot stronger than you think. And I never got that growing up, right? So I wanted to celebrate them. And one lady there, she was like, can we do this in the community? And I was like, well, I don't know. Let's try it. So I'm just a woman that tries, right? Somebody asks me, Miss Liz, can you do it? Oh, I don't know. Let me try it. Like, if I fall, I fall, I get back up because that's all I did all my life. So from 2016, we had community events from up until 2019. We raised over $5,000 for different services in the community that help with bereaved families and domestic violence and shelters and stuff like that. And I also did open house for people at Christmas time because my kids were in care. So the holidays were really hard for me. I would see my kids maybe 3 days before Christmas or a couple days after Christmas. It was never on Christmas, right? So Christmas is a hard time for me.
Mm,
So I said, well, there's got to be other people out there that are nobody, single moms, homeless people. So I would just open my house. And then people said, well, you didn't take pictures? Why would I take pictures of somebody down in their pain? Like, what is
mm,
wrong with people? So I would throw like theme Christmas parties for single moms and homelessness. I did a monkey and banana party where I got a bakery in town, a community baker that just made banana cream pies and little cookies and stuff like that, just so that it wasn't Christmas theme because it was already hard enough for the holidays. Why am I going to have people come in my home when they're already struggling with the holiday and myself as well? So I would make it fun. And we did that for a couple of years. We and I got like little dollar store gifts for any kids that came. So they had coloring books or puzzles but I didn't do it like for people to, oh, we got to put her in the newspaper for this. We got to put her in like, no, I just wanted somebody to spend time with. Like I was by myself anyway. And I had a roof over my head and many people didn't. So come and have a hot meal and come and eat. Let's have some conversations. And I've met some really incredible people, even to this day, where they thank me for those parties and that now they're on their feet and they say thank you for doing that, you know? Um, but then we went to the virtual end when COVID hit. I knew something was coming in 2019. I knew I was just like, I can feel this. What's going on? We're getting locked up, everybody. So I was just like, how do I take this? But with the community events that we were doing, Joe, we had guest speakers. So all I did was bring the speakers to the table on the podcast was let's have 1-to-1, let's have 2-to-1, let's have 3-to-1. I don't care how many people come, just come. Like, you know. So all I did for the first year for my podcast is I reached out to people. I found them, I put in making a difference on Instagram or to child survivors or stuff like that. I just put certain words in and people would pop up and I was just like, I want to know more. I'm sure somebody else out there wants to know more. So,
Mm.
and then we ended up with 76 shows the first year. And then I was nominated for a peace ambassador. So I got to work with 60 different countries. So, hey, let's go international. I got the people at the table. Let's go. And then we just took it from there. And then PRs found me and publicists found me and they were like, my client wants to be on your show. And I was just like, well, let's do this. But I overworked myself because I'm an all or nothing kind of woman.
Mm.
And the last year I felt a burnout coming. I knew my body was saying, "Oh, Liz, you're doing too much. You're pushing too." I did 161 shows in season 4. In season 1, I said, season 5, I said 100, that's it. I'm not doing no more than 100. I did 118. So 18 slid in. Like I was just like I was just like, no. And then I would do reunion shows at the end, just so people could see who was actually on the show if they didn't see that guest. And then they interacted and they shared on other people's podcasts and other platforms and books and collaborations. And it's just to connect the dots, right? It's kind of more like Alice in Wonderland kind of play, like who we going to meet down here and who we putting together, like, kind of speed dating, like we're going to set you up with this person, that person, this person. And that's all I've been doing is I just keep continuing to knock the dots together.
That's great. So you do the podcast, you've got speaking stuff. Do you find that so I think most people probably think that you're just helping other people. And I know that you are. I'm not saying that you're not. But my question is because I feel like this on my podcast, it actually helps me be a better person and me be have a better attitude and I learn things and techniques from other people. Do you get that from your speaking engagements? Did you get that from your podcast before it got to be too much? How did it help you um, manage all that stuff inside your head?
I learned a lot from my guests, because we went to different countries, right? This rocking chairs traveled to 72 countries, you know, and we've had some adventures, and I've had some guests where I'm just like, wow, what am I doing? What? Oh, I can't even. Let's just get through this. Liz, what did you sign up for? You know, but they all taught me something, Joe. They all taught me how to look at life differently. Writers, different authors, different genres of writing, memoirs and science fiction and fantasy. I was never one of those kind of readers, right? And then I had horror people on there. And then if I had guests that were in a band or something, bring your guitar, let's play some music, like let's have some freaking fun. Like, you know, let's really get to know each other. And I've learned a lot. And 95% of my guests, I've done 428 interviews. 95% of them are still connected to me. We still check up on each other. We still celebrate each other. We encourage each other. Uh, you know, they keep coming back and say, Miss Liz, are you coming back with the podcast? And no, guys, I'm not. As much as you all want me to, I'm not. Um, Miss Liz is actually working on changing the way podcasting is done because I found that the authenticity was being lost in podcasting. right? Everyone and their left uncle was having a podcast, and I was just like, okay, like, do you really want to know your guest, or do you want to just have a conversation? Like when I met you, Joe, I was just like, oh no, absolutely, let's do this, you know. But you get some of these podcasters out there that are just like camera action, and they really don't care where you go after the interview. Where my biggest take back is staying connected to the guests afterwards, like 6 months later. Well, how's it been since the interview? Like, what has changed in your life? Any updates? Did you have a new baby? Did you get married? Did someone pass? Like, you know, um, and I had such a large range of people, over 175 different topics. So we touched on a lot of stuff, from organizations to mental health to grief to, or, organizations that help with the homelessness and stuff like that. We had uh, people that were trying to change things, bring a voice to change. We had peace ambassadors. We had people that were working with children. I had Skull Games on, which is a really incredible place to check. They catch predators for sex trafficking and human
Mm.
trafficking. So, like we went from everything, like all the topics that nobody wanted to touch because it was like, no, that's taboo. Miss Liz, leave that alone. I'm just like, why? I lived it. I'm gonna go and dip in it. Like, like, come on. Like, I want to know what you guys are doing to change that. Like, you know, where are we changing topics with for me, it wasn't stranger danger, it was family danger. Where are we having conversations about incest and stuff like that, where people are open about it? There's still a lot of that out there. Child marriages, like I live in Canada, and 1% of child marriages where people are like, that doesn't happen in Canada. Well, you better do your research because it does.
Mm.
Um, so these are all things that I like to touch on, and I'm a truth seeker. And I lived a hard life. I've been through a lot of shit, and I'm going to bring you real facts and real truth. And if something doesn't add up, I'm going to ask you a little deeper. Why are you hiding? What's over there that you
Mm.
don't want somebody to know, right? So I dig. And the questions, like when I was doing the interviews, a lot of my guests were like, how did she get that out of me? And I was just like, I just got away. I just like to dig.
I love it. So, you know what works? I think what works for me, and I think why people are so willing to be very candid, like I'm so appreciative that you're willing to talk about all these things because, to your point, they still go on. Like this has not been eradicated from the world. There are people that are suffering some of the same things you had to suffer through. And I always say that sunlight is the best disinfectant. If you get shit out in the open, you got a
Yep,
chance of working through it. If you hide from it or if you keep it in the shadows, it's going to keep growing and festering and getting moldy. And that's not a way to deal with stuff, and that can be very hard. That can be very like I can't imagine the courage it took for you as a little girl to go to people in your life and say, "Hey, this is happening to me," and have them tell you, basically, "Shut the fuck up. That's not true."
yep.
That's insane to me, but I know it's true. I know it's true. I know it happened. But I mean, most people can't fathom that. We always told our sons that they could tell us. I raised three boys, my wife and I raised three boys, and we said, we did two things. One, we told them, if you ever get lost, find a woman. Don't go to a man, find a woman. I don't care how lost you are, find a woman and
Well,
tell her
not
you're
me,
lost.
because I'll get you lost.
Men are generally the ones that do these despicable things. And so, if you can find a woman, you got much better odds of getting some help. And two, we told him, you can tell us anything. It's a non-judge. We don't judge. That's just not how we operate. And I think that's why our podcast works, is because we just want to have conversations with people. It's not our place to judge anybody about anything. And we have people that come on that talk about things that probably are considered controversial in other places or are probably considered kind of fringe or far out. We're all about those things because we
Yep.
want to learn more about them and we want to drag them into the conversation, kind of like you're talking about. You're like a digger and a grinder and a poker and a prodder. Um, we have found that if we ask a couple questions and give people the floor, they're so willing to be candid. And I think it's because people want and crave that connection to other people. And some people have it in their lives and some people don't. And even if you do have it in your lives, like look at how much bigger my circle is getting just from doing this podcast. I know so many different cool people now that have such cool things going on in their life, you know. Heck, I know a woman that's taken a rocking chair to 72 countries now. I did not know that earlier today.
It's a magic chair, right? It's that rabbit hole. Like what there was a movie, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, where they had the bed knobs or something, bed knobs or some Disney movie where they rolled
Yep.
the knobs and they traveled. That's what I say. This rocking chair has traveled, and I've met some really incredible people. And I mean, like some cool people that Joe, I would have never thought I would have met.
Mm,
How dare this little girl from this little northern town meet like Hollywood directors and New York best-selling authors and and international change makers and peace ambassadors. Who would have thought, right? Um, and I'm just like, come, keep coming, like, sure. And those cool people have stories too. They have shit stories too that they had to overcome, and that's what I really love about having those type of guests on is because everyone thinks that they were born with a silver spoon. Well, that silver spoon had to come from somewhere,
mm,
right? And a lot of people who had the silver spoon regret that silver spoon. You know, they have everything given to them as a child. They didn't learn anything. That's what they tell me. Miss Liz, I never learned nothing. It was given all to me. What was I supposed to learn? And then the ego came in, and then I was just like, yeah, whatever. I can go and fix that in 2 minutes. I just make a phone call. But it gave them no life experience, and they're resentful for it. Because I'm just like, well, you had everything. Why are you so angry for? Well, because I didn't get a chance to live. I didn't have life. I was like, well, you can take some of my stuff. Like, go on, I'll share it. You know. Um, But there's always that two sides, right? That people forget that even the people that have everything in the world that we all think is the big stuff, sometimes it's not. It's the little stuff that we really got to just go back to. And that's what the tea is. It's the little stuff. It's just take time for tea, take time for you, take time to understand why you're doing this, why you're writing a book, why you're making a movie, why you're doing a podcast. And podcasting is not for everybody. I really wish people would really look at podcasts in a different way, Joe, because there is some incredible hosts out there that are not being seen because it's flooded. It's the pond is full. There's too many
mm.
fish. So we got to start putting some T hooks in there and just keep taking them out. Like, like it's fishing season. But I mean, we gotta, we really gotta look at stuff differently in life. It's not for everybody. Just like my story's not for everybody. My tea's not for everybody, and that's okay. But we live in a society where everybody just wants everybody to like and love, right? Like me, like me, like me, love me, love me. And they're the loneliest people out there. So, I like to be real and raw. I don't want everybody to like me, and I don't want everybody drinking my tea. There's some people I just don't want at my table, like the people that abuse me. I do not want to have Sunday dinner with them. Like, wish you well and get lost, go buy your own roast beef. Like, I'm not having you. But that doesn't mean that I go out and get revenge on them or, karma's going to get them. Karma gets everybody. So,
Yep.
and if
Totally
you're
agree.
lucky, you get to watch, and I've gotten lucky to watch some of it. And I'm just like, tit for tat, guys. Like it's not me, it's karma getting you, not me.
Yeah. Yeah. You're the chickens have come home to roost and now it's your turn. Well, and you had made a comment earlier, and I think this would probably surprise a lot of people, but it makes sense to me. You had said earlier, after you had talked through some of the tough stuff you had when you were a girl, that you're grateful for it because it made you who you are. And I think that people that haven't kind of experienced some really tough things would probably be surprised by that. But it makes sense to me because without those experiences, who knows what trajectory would have been or how your life would have turned out. And did those things suck while they were happening? Fucking A, they sucked while they were happening. However, here you are and you're strong and you're a leader and a role model for lots of people and you can provide value to them. And you wouldn't be able to do those things if you hadn't gone through what you went through. So, it's very much a double-edged sword. So I know exactly what you're talking about when you talk about those things. So do you sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I've been asked this a lot, Joe. Like, would you change anything? And some people say they would. And I kind of question that because it takes away from who you are. It takes away from the experiences that you've had. Would I love to erase the abuse in that? Absolutely. But you know what? If I start erasing that, then my story's not the same. My strength is not the same. My courage is not the same. Like everything changes. My kids are not the same. Like we had to go through that all that hard stuff in order to be here, in order to be the example. And my biggest thing that I tell my kids is just be you. Who cares who likes you? If your boyfriend doesn't like you, well, get a new one. If your girlfriend
Mm.
doesn't like you, get a new one. You know, if your dog doesn't like you, well, you know what? Maybe you need to smarten up because dogs got good taste. So, you know, but there was something that you said a few minutes ago, Joe, about your boys and find a woman. Well, and I said, not me. We went into a gas station one time, we got lost, and my spouse at the time, he sent me in to get directions. And by the time I got back to the car, I had already forgotten the instructions on where to turn and where to go. So I went back the second time. Same thing happened again. The third time I went in, the guy looked at me and he says, "Ma'am, do you need me to get in the car with you?" I said, "Well, maybe that might help."
Would you? You do anything right now? It's not that far.
But no, I suck with directions. I don't know my lefts from rights. Everybody keeps telling me it's the ring finger. Well, I got no ring, so where do I look? Like I'm just like I had rings before, but you know what? Sometimes rings are not good for you. So yeah, I'm just that person that's real and raw, and I come different, and I get different results, and I just want to change the world by serving tea in a different way and getting people to just pause and
Yeah.
reflect and recharge and release. It's like a basketball, just bounce it and throw it.
So are your kids adults now or where are they at in life?
Yeah, my kids are all adults. My oldest is 33, and then 32 and 25. And I'm a grandma to a 4-year-old and a grandma to 7 other step grandchildren. So yeah, I'm kind of busy.
No kidding. So we're not far off. Mine are 30, 27, and 25 right now. They had some difficult experiences when they were growing up. How have they dealt with them? And have you had to help them um, kind of process that stuff? Or how did that work when your kids got old enough to talk through those things?
But we still have our struggles. Uh, we had a lot to work through, and we're still working through it. My older children now, especially my daughter who has a daughter, she's starting to understand why mom had to do certain things and make
Mm.
choices I had to. My son and me are getting close again. We were really close when he was a little guy. He was mommy's favorite. And the girls always say it, he's still my favorite. It's just he's a boy and they're girls. There's no love difference. Um, and my youngest, well, it's a journey within itself because she comes from a man who's became mom's best friend. So it's kind of odd. Mom's not with the best friend, but mom's still friends. Like, so there's a lot of work still to do. It's a healing journey for them. And I've expressed to them that when it's time for them to share their story, it's their story to share. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be like, that never happened. That's their story to tell. That's not my story to tell. Because my
Sure.
youngest did that with book two. She's like, Mom, like you made the foster parents. I said, no, no, no. I wrote to heal. I didn't write to hurt anybody. That was my story. That's what happened. And that was for me to share. When you get old enough and you want to share your story, that's your story to share. But I said, I'm not out here writing stuff that never happened. Why would I write stuff of my kids hiding under a bed or hiding in closets or and crying to get into the car that the driver's picking up to go back because they want to stay with mom, like they're kids, right? So, um, and it was just a rocky road. I really wanted to stay connected to my kids. I really made it and I enforced it that I wasn't a mom that was just going to sign my kids off and disappear.
Mm,
I wanted my visits. I wanted the graduation, the dance recitals. I wanted all of that. I wanted to celebrate their birthdays. So I showed up for all of that. It was just mom lived in a different home.
sure. Yep. Excuse me. What's your favorite part about speaking? What is it? So we talked about writing, but when you work with groups or you give speeches or you uh, counsel or educate people, what do you like the most about that?
I kind of like looking at the room. I like scoping. I think it's because of what I went through. I like to see where the energy is, who's paying attention, who's not paying attention. When I'm speaking, I'm terrified. My anxiety is through the roof, but everybody thinks I'm cool and collective. I'm just like even now, my anxiety, people don't see because I'm sitting in the rocking chair, right? But the anxiety is still there. I have the sweaty hands. I have, the tightness in my chest and stuff like that. And I was always scared of speaking because I was always told to be quiet growing up. So
Mm,
even to this day, when I do share my story, sometimes I'm just like, am I sharing too much? Should I put it back a bit? Put the brakes on. Maybe it's too much. Maybe these listeners don't want to hear this heavy stuff. So that's always playing in the head, right? And a lot of people don't see what's going on. Like I said the other day on another podcast, Joe, I said, I'm sitting here doing an interview, but that doesn't mean I'm not having suicidal thoughts right now. You know, people are so quick to judge what they don't understand.
mm.
You might look like you have it all together, but you might be fighting to get through that day. Like, there's functioning depression out there. That's what I live with as well. I can function, but I still have severe depression. So, there's things, PTSD that I have. I'm very jumpy. If somebody comes up behind me to go, I'm gonna knock you in the head. Like, it's not because I want to be violent, but don't you dare like I'm on edge all the time. Like I'm very jumpy and stuff like that. My kids think it's funny, especially my son. He's like, he'll like to try and scare me, and I'm just, son, one day I'm telling you, you're gonna get me, and it's not because I want to hurt you, but don't do it. Um, but there's so much out there that we don't understand, Joe, about mental illness, right? About all these diagnoses that we're given. Doctors tell us, well, you have this because you went through this, but then they don't tell you the side effects or that it's going to come back, that it's going to re-trigger, that it's going to re-traumatize. There's certain times I'm listening to a song and I'm like, Jesus, Murphy, I hate that freaking song. Like, what the hell are they trying to say in this song? And then the next song, I'll listen to it. It's a similar freaking song that was just playing the minute before. And I'm like all calm and collected. I was like, what was in that one song that really just got me going? Um, so it's been a rough ride. It's been hard. And I want to share my story because I know there are people out there that are living in silence. There are people that are scared. I was scared. I'm still scared, but we got to show up scared, We got to show up for ourselves. And that's what I do is I show up.
That's the that's the crazy and hard part about courage, is that you can only display courage when you're scared, because by definition, courage is acting in the face of fear or confronting whatever you're fearful of. So if you're not afraid, you can't be brave. You can't be courageous. The only time you can be brave or courageous is when you're afraid. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around. The thing about it is, you or anyone, I don't mean you personally, but anyone, we all get dealt some things in our life that are completely out of our control. We have no control over some things that happen to us. Everything that happened to you as a young girl was out of your control. you're a kid. You can't stop any of that stuff from happening. And even when you tried to get help, the people that should have helped you didn't at all.
Yep.
Um, that's all shitty stuff, no question about it. However, you, I think, have demonstrated what we talk about a lot is that simply because those things happen to you, it doesn't give you an excuse to not live the best life that you're capable of at that point. And I would use it's very trivial in light of all the things we've talked about here, but I have a terrible temper. I'm super Irish. I have a terrible temper.
I'm
I don't drink
Norwegian,
at
so I get it.
all.
We got that Viking blood in us. We want to fight.
Ex- exactly. And so I don't drink at all. And I jokingly say I fight twice as much to make up for it. Now, that was the, one of the things that I was dealt in life. That does not absolve me of my responsibility to control my temper and to channel those feelings and that aggression in a positive way. And I've learned to do that over the years, and I'm a lot better at it now than I used to be. Am I perfect? Fuck no, I'm not perfect. I still lose my temper every once in a while, but I'm way better than I used to be. And so I think you're a great example of someone that even to this day, and I appreciate you being so candid about it because I think it's so helpful for people that think, well, fuck, it's not just me. There's other people out here, right? That are fighting the same things that I'm fighting, but you keep going. And I think that's to me, the most primary message out of all of this is that you've got to keep going. You've got to find a way that works for you to come to terms with the things that have happened to you and move forward the best way you can with the best attitude and thought process that you can. And that was why I was so excited about bringing you on the show is, the first time we talked, we were immediately kind of joking around with each other. And I could just tell that you were going to be super direct and super straightforward. And I just really appreciate that and want to call it out because you're such a good example for the listeners that may be dealing with similar things that you had to deal with or still deal with. So good job.
Well, thank you. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity, Joe, like, to get the story out there. And for me, like I use storytelling and words. So like some of my words are transparent, example, attitude, transformation, empowerment, action. Like these are things that all of us have within ourselves, right? But we don't use words anymore to tell stories. We use stories to tell stories, if that makes any sense. Somebody's always trying to outdo the next story. Instead of just being yourself, just be your
Yeah.
story. Like, just own your story and say, you know what? My life was full of shit, but I'm still doing my story. Not where, oh my God, I got all these awards and oh, well, I got 10 more awards than you. And I'm so sick of that. I'm sick of people putting on this front and not being authentic and being themselves, and that's why I want to get on different podcasts and I want to sit at different tables and I want people to say, you know what? Miss Liz has gone through shit, but Miss Liz is still showing up with her shit because my shit's not over with. I'm still dealing with shit at 51. I'm going to be dealing with shit for the next 50 years because my ancestors, they live long ages. I don't know, they like to suffer a lot. So I know I'm going to be here for at least a good 100 years old, but I have grandkids now that are looking at me and saying, Nanny, you're my superhero because I am who I am, because I'm authentic. And nanny losers are cool because nanny's just like that. Guys, that don't make any sense. Like smarten up. Like we're not doing this, you know? But I'm not perfect. And a lot of people are like, Miss Liz, you're so perfect. You have it so together. No, I don't. I don't. I just show up, guys. I am who I am. Some days I'm a bag of bones. The next day I'm a bag of giggles. Like I don't know, right? Because of the mental illness and the traumas and triggers and stuff like that. I go to bed every night and I just say, let me wake up and see where you're taking me now, tomorrow. Like, what adventures are we doing tomorrow? Oh, we're baking bread tomorrow, are we? Like, I don't really want to bake bread. I'm not a baker. Like, but it's just the way life is. We get these things that get thrown at us, like you said, and we have no control over them. And for years, I was the one that was blaming myself. Oh, if I was just a better wife, if I was just a better daughter, if I was just a better niece, you know? And I got sick of it. I was just like, I am better. I am enough. I am who I am. And I don't understand why these people want to break me. Like, what's in me that scares that living hell out of them?
Mm,
Like, why are they choosing me out of 26 grandkids? Why does grandpa want me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why does uncle want me out of 19 nieces and nephews? You know? And then I wonder, is there other ones? Are they not sharing? Are they not speaking? Is that why they're into the addictions? You know, I tell my kid this all the time. I wish I could be a drunk. I wish I could be an addict. I wish I could numb it. I can't. I have to get
mm.
up every day and I have to face it. But I'm in love with addicts. I'm in love with alcoholics. But I can't do it. And and something in me is just, it's not for you, Liz. You're here to be here and be different and do different and just be raw. And you know, raw scares people, Joe. People don't want raw. I put this out there because I have so many titles, because I sat at many tables, because people, Miss Liz, can you do it? I don't know. Let me try it. That was my whole thing all my life. So I
Mm.
sat at some tables with different organizations and stuff like that for human rights and commissioners and all that. And I seen so much garbage. I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not okaying this. I okayed all of the stuff growing up because I had no choice. Now I have a choice and I'm not okaying it. You know, and I put it out on LinkedIn. I said, if I didn't have all the titles in my bio, would you guys work with me? 87% of that poll said no.
That's crazy.
It is because people don't want to work with the real person. They want to work with the titles. They don't want to work with somebody with the skills, with the experience. They want to work with the titles. And that's why I share what I share. And that's why I come to the platforms and I come to the podcast. And, you know, just because people reach out to me to be a guest on their show doesn't mean that I accept all. Like, I do my homework too. I checked on you too there. Like, and I know where my voice needs to be and what tables I need to sit at.
Yep. It's I agree. I know you're right about the title thing. And we do the opposite. We just look for people that really want to connect and have something to offer to the audience. So, like kind of like you talked about when you did your podcast, we have a very eclectic group of people. You know, we had Richard's episode aired today, and he's the CEO of the largest call center in Costa Rica, and he's a
Oh, I
transplant
had
from.
Richard on tea time.
Oh, did you? You know Richard?
Richard Blank, right?
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
great
he's
guy.
got me all over. He's got me plastered all over with nice little posters. I'm just like, Richard, where are you taking me? He's like, I'm taking you traveling, woman. Small
But
world.
there's,
Oh, wow, that's
yeah.
nice to know that Richard got with you.
Yeah, there's stuff to learn from his story and from his experiences, just like there's stuff to learn from your story and your experiences. But what we do, that's why we do a pre-screen. It's a shame too, because there's a woman that I'd love to have on, but she doesn't do, she essentially said, I've done enough podcasts. If you want to have me on, let me know, but I don't do pre-calls. And I like got it. I totally respect that. But like we've worked too hard
Yep.
to build our brand on the podcast to make sure that we've got the right people on. And so we don't let anyone on without doing a pre-screening. One, we got to make sure you can speak in sentences, because even if you've got a great story, if you're really shitty at telling the story, then like it's tough to get it to resonate with an audience. And then two, we just want to know that they're authentic because everyone we have on, people aren't putting on airs or making shit up or trying to behave a certain way. They behave the way that they behave. And we think there's a ton of value in our listeners. I think there's a ton of value in that as well. So yeah, look, I knew 30 seconds into our conversation that we were
Well,
going to
I
have you
brought the
on.
sweet, you had the salt.
Exactly. I'm glad you didn't put the kibosh on us. I'm glad we're one of the ones that you accepted because you've done such a good job of just, to your point, being raw and being real and telling it like it is. And again, it's just impressive that you're continuing to push forward. And you made me laugh with the, the Norwegians. We like to suffer. I'm going to be alive for a long time.
Well, we're Vikings, right? Right? Like we want to fight. Like, and I feel that that's where I get the strength from is the ancestors, right? They like, like we didn't give up easy. We really fought. Uh, and there's a lot of history that we don't pay attention to in our
Mm,
stories as well. Uh, you know, generational cycles, patterns. It was passed down for many years, Joe. People that abused me and that I was like, what happened to you?
mm,
That you have to do this to me?
yep.
What happened to you? And then after that, it was, no, we're not doing this because that cycle can be broken at any damn time.
Yep.
It takes 7 generations to break a generational cycle. So even if I break it this time and my daughter and my son continue to cycle, then we start over again. Then my granddaughter starts it. It takes 7 generations.
Wow.
So will it ever be broken? Absolutely not. And it's scary. It's sad because you want your children, you want your grandchildren, you want your great grandchildren to be safe, but you can't promise that they will be.
Yeah.
And that scares me. Like my daughter sent me a picture the other day of her and my little granddaughter. And I literally stopped in the tracks when she sent me the picture. I was like, "Oh my God, how am I with my daughter? Like, how am I beside my daughter right now? Like, that's me. That's me." And I literally sent a picture of my daughter to my daughter. And I have the picture here, Joe. I'm going to hold it up for you. My granddaughter looks exactly like this. That's me at 4. That's when my abuse started.
Yeah.
So it put me in the hard tracks. That's when my life changed. So
Yep.
is somebody hurting my little granddaughter? This little girl? So it was like, Natalie, how is mommy beside you? Like, how is that possible? And she's like, Mom, it's Raylan. It's not you. And it's like, but God's sake, she looks like me. I said, not. She even has the same smile as me. Like, how is that even? It's generational. And your grandchild will come from the grandmother. Like a lot of people don't know that, but the seed is actually planted in the grandmother, and then that seed is planted into the daughter, and the daughter is planted into the granddaughter. That's where the generational cycles and patterns and all that. I do a lot of research. I'm just a nerd, you know, but I was just like, how does that kid look so much like me? The same smile, the same angle. Her head was till it was just like, oh, we got to stop. Like, no, like right now, we're on pause.
Yeah, that had to be jarring for you to make that connection that holy shit, that is the same identical and the same age as when things really started happening to me. That had to be like, whoa, like a slap in the face or a kick in the teeth or whatever you want to call it.
It was scary. Where a lot of people would have said, well, it's just a picture. Uh, but it was the realization that that's how young I was
Mm,
when I lost my innocence. So it does put you in the track. And then you get on guard. Now I'm on guard with my little one all the time. I'm just like, we're having some tea time here. We're having some conversations, kid. Like, you better be telling Nanny, like, you know. But
yeah,
I mean, but that's that guard, right? Now I have the guard on. She's 4. I was 4. Is it gonna last the whole time that she's 4, or is it gonna stop when she turns 5, or is it? But my guard is up, and I'm very, very protective of my granddaughter. Like, when my daughter sent in that picture, like I literally was in tears. I was shaking. I was crying. I was just like, oh my God, how am I beside my kid? And my daughter was like, Mom, it's granddaughter, it's your granddaughter. And I was like, sweetheart, no, that's me. And it took a while for me to process it. And the whole day I was like off. I was just off. I was just like, how is that possible that I was sitting beside my daughter? Like, that's my daughter. How was I? And then I'd have to tell myself, Liz, it's not you. It's not you. It's it's your granddaughter. You're okay. You're safe. You're okay. But it's that reliving it, right? So and like for the listeners out there, you're gonna get traumatized like that, right? When similar pictures, similar smells, similar characters, words, you're gonna be triggered. Like, and that's what I mean. Like my healing journey is a lifetime, Joe. Um, there's no 30-day fix, right? I give you $99 and I'm cured. I wish it was. I give you the $99 right now. Like, let's do it. Let's sign it. But it's not the way life works.
Well, you had talked earlier about, hearing a song and having it like, I don't like that song. And then the next song you did. I wonder if that song made you associate to some time in your past that wasn't great for you.
Well, that's what I'm thinking because it was similar background music, maybe a couple of words that were different, but one song just made me angry, and then the next one kind of calmed me down. And that's what I mean, like the roller coaster, like buckle up. Like people that are in my life, they're like, oh my God, she was fine now. Plus, I'm menopausing, guys. Like I'm in my 50s, you know. The mood swings are there too, but but some stuff, it's just like, what the hell is wrong with that song? Why is that song so freaking hard on me? And then other songs, it's just like, thank you for calming me down, bringing me back. And that's how life is, right? We get up, we get down. And then sometimes we go sideways and then we get lost and we don't get the directions because Miss Liz sucks at directions. So
Do you have any other um coping mechanisms or things that you default to try to get, let's call it, recentered when things get tough for you? I know you use writing. I know you use the rabbit holes and the tea parties and those types of things. Is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you use when you find yourself having those thoughts and kind of head into that space you don't want to head to?
the water, I find a place of water. The water calms me. If it's a rushing water and my thoughts are really heavy, the louder the rushes, the ripples, it kind of drowns it out, right? Kind of takes it away.
Mm.
So I go to the water a lot. Birds. I talk to animals. I'm like Snow White. I just like what are we doing? Like, did you guys
the
eat
old
those
the
berries over
old
there?
Snow
Like,
White, the old Snow White, not the new woke one, right?
no, 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 not that one. But I mean, yeah, like people who will see me sitting by myself will actually think that I have like a conversation going on with a big crowd. Um, I like to talk to the animals. The animals seem to understand me. Sometimes they talk back. Yesterday, I had a bird that hit my window, and I thought, oh my God, the bird died. Now we're gonna have somebody come. But the bird was actually okay, and he just started tapping on the window and then chirp, 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 and then he flew away. I was like, okay, well, what the heck does that mean? So I like, does anybody understand what this is? Because I know what it means when a bird hits the window and it dies. It means death's coming, and I'm not ready to die yet. I still got a lot of story in me. So, but yeah,
Totally, yeah.
no birds and water.
So here's an interesting statistic that I learned on Jeopardy that your country, Canada, has more square footage covered by water than any other country in the world.
There's lots of water, so
Tons.
there's no reason why you can't find water in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, look, it's interesting too, because that's one of the things that we recommend to people when they're kind of feeling the walls close in or whatever you want to call it, when you can feel like yourself slipping into a negative spot mentally, is to get outside and to get into nature. Like by reconvening with nature, it kind of resets your central nervous system, and it can really help you change your thought process, especially when possible, to get out into sunlight, to get out into nature where there's grass and dirt and trees and animals and water. And it's very therapeutic to be in those settings. So I promise, guys, we didn't coach Liz at all on that answer. But it's a common theme we hear from people over and over and over again: is get outside, get some fresh air, let the sunlight hit your skin, get around water, get into the woods, reconnect with nature, and it can help you kind of reset. There's just something kind of pure and re-energizing about being in those environments. So Yeah,
But
that
also
makes perfect.
landscaping too. Like landscaping for the longest time helped with my mental health, just digging out the wards and the worms and the weeds and stuff like that. Right. I
Hmm.
kind of looked at the weeds as part of my story. Like, oh, and I would name the weed, like, okay, well, you're this person and that person and this, you know, um, oh my God, you're so tough. Like, why are you stuck in there? Like, get out. Like, and like I said, people that see me outside by myself, they're like, oh my God, that woman is like, stay away from her. But they all come over and start telling me their life stories because I feel like I'm just that connector, right? That they open up and they're like, what's going on over there? And I really resonate with older people, like the elders, the seniors, uh, because back in the day, they didn't have a voice. We didn't talk about mental health back in the day. They were not
Mm.
allowed to talk about that. It was just pull your stuff, pull your shit together and get on. Like, you know
Yeah.
domestic violence. We didn't talk about that. How many women and men, and I'm big on this, Joe, is I want the same services for my son as what his mother has. If my son's in a domestic violence situation, I want him to have the same service. I don't want just his mom to have the service. Um, and I say this to a lot of moms out there. You have a son. Wouldn't you want your son to have the same services you have? It's not about men over women or women over men. It's about equal rights for services. Like, same medical treatment, same, like, why are we doing this, him and her or her and him? Like, so I speak a lot about that as well. I speak about humanity. I don't believe that there's ever going to be peace on earth. That's the real truth. Like, you see how many wars are going on in today's world, right? There's like 7 right now that are going on. Like it's just there's no peace because
And
everybody's
and
out for war, right?
and this is one of the most peaceful periods in human history. You're 100% right with what you just said. Imagine that. This is one of the most peaceful periods in human history that we're living in right now. It's wild when you still think about all the things, the conflicts that are going on around the world. Are you, Liz? Are you spiritual at all? Are you religious at all, or no?
I'm spiritual. I tried religion. I tried like 7 different kind of different cultures and religion and stuff like that. I had people that told me I couldn't drink coffee after 7 o'clock, or I couldn't drink coffee at all, or I wasn't allowed to sleep with somebody unless I was married to them. Like I was just like seriously, who has the control to tell me what I'm allowed to do, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people preach the scriptures, and I was just like, okay, well, let's talk about the scriptures. And I did this with a couple of churches. I even reached out to the pastors and stuff and priests, and I'd be like, okay, so what is this about Abraham sacrificing his son? Do we want to talk about that, the Old Testament or the New Testament? Because, and then that pastor had told me at the time, and when I lived in a community a little bit out of where I am now, he said, well, you need to sacrifice your kids. And I said, well, I'm not going to sacrifice my kids because they can't come to this church when they don't live in my home. So how do you want them to come to this church? And he's like, well, in order to stay in this religion, you have to sacrifice your children if they don't want to attend church. And I said, well, it's impossible for my kids to attend this church when they don't even live with me.
Mm.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then to go find out that that priest, he had like testified against somebody for a murder charge that that person never did. So that person went to jail for 20 years because of this priest. Like, I was just like, seriously, like, are we throwing stones at walls because you think you're better than us because of that title? Because you think you sit in a church above us? So a lot of churches got me angry. A lot of, so I turned away from religion and I turned to the spiritual world. I turned to the Holy Spirit. Um, and then an evangelist told me that the Holy Spirit will knock on your door and you will not recognize him. Well, you know what? I'm still waiting for him because he hasn't knocked on my door. So because I won't recognize him. So I don't know if he's here or he hasn't come. Like I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like it's just I know there's a higher power out there. I know that somebody is watching over me. Um, and I know that when my time is up, that I will be blessed in a different way. Um, but I don't put the church in front of myself. I don't put religion, and I'm not knocking churches down, and I'm not knocking religion down. If it's for you, it's for you. It's not my cup of tea, and I only serve my tea. So, like, I do what's best for me. So,
I love you. I love you bringing it back to tea. It's always going to come
It
back to
it
tea
always
for
comes
you, isn't
back to
it?
tea, Joe. Like, tea saved my life. Like, and a lot of people are like, Miss Liz, like, you always talk tea, tea, tea. And I was like, yeah. And when I talk tea, right away, I get your attention too, right?
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so one of the things we do with every guest is as we get towards the end here, um, is there anything that I have not asked you or a subject we have not, or subjects that we have not talked about yet that you want to make sure our audience hears while this episode is on? And you already said it. We'd love to have you back on somewhere in the future because we take a similar approach to you in that we're not a one and done type group. So we actually communicate with a lot of our podcast guests. In fact, I was connected through one of our previous guests to a guy that runs a group called Apex Dads, which is essentially a group that has fathers that can kind of provide guidance and support for other fathers. And so I'm very interested in that because it was one of the main reasons we started our podcast was that there's not enough men out there providing positive role models for young people in general. I mean, look at you, what if you'd had a different dad? Um, so we stay involved with them is my point. I'm kind of I'm getting us off track here. I'll get us back on track. But the
he's
whole
just
point
slipping
here
a
is
bit.
the whole point here is I want to give the floor to you to talk about anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important or anything that you want to bring up. So the floor is yours.
Well, I think I really, really want to get is the salt and the sweet, right? The sugar and the salt. Let's go with that sugar and salt, right? A lot of people see it as the same. It's not. Salt is bitter and it does give flavor. Sweet is tender and it gives flavor. So we give two different types of flavors, right? And it's just like the tea. The tea gives a different flavor, the different blends, the different flows and stuff like that. So you can have some strong tea, you can have some medium tea, you can have some weak tea, you know? But it really goes back to the salt and sweet in the tea. Because if you add some salt to tea, it's actually really good, guys, instead of the sugar. If you have a bitter tea, like a black tea, you can add some. I'm going to give you guys some little tips and stuff like that. But I really just want to bring it back to Joe is the difference that we all can make. We don't talk about other people making difference in our lives. We just talk about me, 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 me. I didn't come on here to talk about me. I came on here to talk about life. I came on here to talk about stuff that we need to start talking about. And that's tea. And we all have a tea. We all have that inner journey within ourselves. So for me, you see it on the back of the wall here, teaching educational awareness. We all have a past, we all have a present, and we all have a future. We're all time travelers and we all make a difference when we start living our true, authentic selves and we start being salty and sweet. You know, Joe, you're the salt, I'm the sugar. Like, you know what I mean? But we do have both a story, and that story brought us together tonight and connected us in a way. And for the listeners out there that are listening and saying, God damn, this woman, does she ever give up? No, I don't. You guys will be surprised what's coming next. So, like we said in the middle of the show, maybe in the middle of the show, Joe, we talked about changing the letter from TEA to TEE. I was
Yep.
given a T at the age of 4 by my Oma. My Oma came from Germany. So when you spell tea in German, it's TEE. So I'm still giving you guys tea. I just want to play with your heads. And with that tea, we're going to give you some transcend, some embrace, and envision. So transcend beyond the story, live beyond the story. Don't let it make it the story. Embrace the journey. Take the time to really transform yourselves with the embracing. Dig deep and live the painful scars. Be proud of those scars because those scars are going to make you who you are. Envision a dream that nobody else can take from you. Don't let anybody take your dreams away because dreams are big and we all have a different dream. Joe, your dream is different than mine. My dream is different than yours. And we just want to make a difference. And I really appreciate having this opportunity to be on your platform and to share my story and to share my tea, my wisdom, my strength and courage. I'm scared shitless, but I'm showing up, guys. So just keep showing up even when you're scared.
Love it. Wow, what a powerful way to wrap up this episode with Liz. Like we said, we'll stay in touch and you'll come back on because there's plenty of ground for us to cover here. But I just want to thank you again for your willingness to be so candid and reach out to let other people know that, hey, really bad stuff can happen to you and you can find a path forward if you want to and if you're willing to. So thank you so much, Liz, for coming on and being so candid. And we'll stay in touch and we'll have you on again. But really, really powerful episode. And we really appreciate you coming on and sharing the story with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had fun. I had a little bit of salt tonight.
That's good. It's hard not to when you're around us. To your point, I am who I am, you are who you are, and that's either good enough for people or it's not good enough for people. I learned to be okay with that a long time ago. So yeah,
Well, that's the fighter in us, right? The Irish and the Norwegian. So we
exactly.
might go butt heads, but at the end of the day, we still want the same outcome. We want different.
Exactly. And we can have a cup of tea when it's all over.
Absolutely.
Well, great job, Liz. Really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, guys. So, like we said at the beginning, very powerful episode, and we appreciate Liz's willingness to be so candid and share her stories of all the challenges that she's had to overcome in her life and how she approaches it. And we love the unique approach of using tea and kind of the Alice in Wonderland themes throughout how she deals with the challenges in her life. And she was candid about saying, it's not over. I'm not done yet dealing with all of this stuff, and it still rears its head from time to time. And I have to continue to push forward and find ways that are productive for me to manage through these things. So she just was so great, and we will have her on somewhere down the road and just touch base with her, see how she's doing, see how the speaking is going, see if her new version of tea parties and tea times is different and how it's kind of impacted the people she works with. So super powerful. Really glad we had Liz on and really glad we were able to share that with you guys. So before you leave, head over to our website. James puts it up over here every night. saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are available on there. Links to all our social media accounts are available on there. We've got a newsletter we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to there. And please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. Super helpful. So thanks for joining us. We're going to continue to keep finding awesome people to come on. There's great people out there that have a ton of value, can share their stories and teach us all something. So make sure you don't miss the next episode, and we'll see you there.